Welcome to the apocalypse. Today we're back in Rimworld, where an unknown zombie virus is sweeping across the planet, and my squad of 5 marines have 100 days to prepare before the swarm mutates, becomes extremely dangerous, and heads west to reach our base. Will we be able to become self-sufficient and recruit enough survivors to withstand the horde, or will we be joining the undead ourselves? Every 25 days it will get harder for us as the difficulty is raised and more zombies continue to drift into the area. Our survivors include Goop Licker, Ant Smasher, Theodore Roosevelt, Piss Thrall, and of course, the Nostalgia Critic. As long as one or more of our original survivors can make it to the end, I'm going to consider that a win. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, it's worth mentioning that while recording footage for the first 25 days, I was travelling and only had my laptop to record on, so I forgot my PC's screen resolution was making it look like a 2006 YouTube tutorial. But from day 25 onwards, I switched back over to my PC, so we'll be back to HD soon. So with that being said, what exactly is the plan? How will we make it to the 100th day alive? Essentially, we have 2 goals. The first is to amass enough firepower and defenses to battle the horde on the final day, and the second is to survive until then. But for now, our first goal is to create a self-sufficient compound sealed off from the rest of the world. And to achieve this, it will require us risking our lives to collect resources surrounding the base. So we begin by burrowing deep into the opening of a cave for shelter. Nothing too fancy for the first night, just some safety from the zombies now strolling into our territory. I felt like it was safe enough to survive the first night without a door. First thing the next morning, I built one to give us some real safety. The absolute basics were now sorted. Luckily, since we're marines, we have the benefit of starting with automatic weapons, as well as having unlocked the research to sentry turrets. However, we will still have to be careful when using loud weapons, as we could easily attract the horde and could risk being overrun.
Action is coming.
So having a wall around our compound would mean that we were able to pull pranks on each other, like randomly shooting other squad mates in the head.
I'm going to die.
Why?
Because you shot me.
Alright.
But it seems like the true prank was on me. I drafted Piss Thrall so that I was able to freely control his movement, but forgot that the fire at will option was checked, and so I unintentionally drew a group of zombies towards me. But to make matters worse, I didn't spot the little dickhead zombified guinea pig scuttling towards me to deliver Piss Thrall's inevitable fate. And so our first man was down. With Piss Thrall's death sealed, he took his final piss and peacefully strolled into a field to draw away the horde from the base and give us time to set up the outer wall, thus concluding one of the most guilt-inducing trade deals known to man. Piss Thrall in exchange for a defensive wall. But on the bright side, Thrall's sacrifice did mean that we would be safe from zombies, as they were unable to destroy doors or walls, at least for the time being. With the squad increasingly hungry and on the verge of starvation, our next goal became to create a steady supply of food. At this point, we had started using the small plot of land we had walled off to grow some rice in. They were growing pretty nicely thanks to the range of illegal GMOs and carcinogenic pesticides used on them. But since we still had some time before our crops were ready to be harvested and turned into a supply of terrible single ingredient meals, we were forced to leave the safety of our base to hunt and pick some berries.
Oh my god, look at this, there's a bunch of berries.
Goop Licker still decided to throw a tantrum due to how hungry he was, so naturally I shot him.
So, you're going to execute me?
After all, a little malnutrition never hurt anyone, and if we were to survive and re-establish society, I wanted to make it clear that in our new society, complaining about a lack of food would be a one-way ticket to a 12-gauge round to the head. So it wouldn't be ants that Ant Smasher was obliterating today, but instead his dear friend Skull.
See this? This is my boomstick!
Once the rice growth period was done, we had all the rice we could ever need.
Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker!
So with a near endless supply, it was time to find some more survivors to eat it. Our first recruit was Blanca Maynard, who had been sent by the leader of a very fake sounding Alliance of Colne to study other cultures. Not sure whether this was some kind of Nigerian scam or an attempt to steal our personal data. We gave her the benefit of the doubt and cautiously decided to let her in. Why exactly she wanted to study 4 sweaty, hairy men living in the dark confines of a cave in the middle of nowhere was beyond me, but we made sure to give Maynard a truly culturally enriching experience by keeping her bedbound in our dank, smelly commune and feeding her once every day or two if we could be bothered to remember. You see, Maynard has paralytic aphasia, a condition which had left her temporarily paralyzed. If we could look after her for 21 days, she may recover and join our group, or at the very least, we'd get some reward for looking after her. The next survivor we took in was Scissor, a raider who we had found injured outside the cave, and so we imprisoned him while we indoctrinated him into our beautiful culture. If we could add these two to our group, we'd stand a higher chance of surviving. So with the first 25 days now drawing to a close, we wrapped things up by securing a decently sized courtyard to gather wood and berries from, without being disturbed by any zombies. By luring them all away, we set up some steel walls and finally had claimed a small but valuable stake of the map. I increased the spawn rate of the zombies and raised the general game difficulty. As long as we were to stay in the base, we would be fine, but with food and shelter now sorted, our next goal became to prepare for the winter. To do so required us heading out of the base to gather more resources. First things first, with the slowly dropping temperatures, we needed some nice winter coats, as well as aircon and electricity so we could create a freezer for us to stockpile rice in. And so we needed a few things: some fabric, a source of electricity, components for aircon, and a tailoring bench. I could easily build a tailoring bench, but for the fabric, aircon, and electricity, they would all have to wait for now. So in the meantime, we had a few errands to run. Building a wider dumping zone, laying down wooden floor in the barracks, and building a couple of prisoner rooms were all jobs I managed to tick off early on. And just in time too, as a naked, schizophrenic woman had stumbled into our land. Not exactly the cream of the crop, but we had to take what we could get. Before the zombies had a chance to get her, I sent Gooplicker rushing out the base to kidnap her. With the horde alerted, my only option was to lure them away so that Gooplicker had a clear path back home. But with Nostalgia Critic getting increasingly overwhelmed, I didn't realize just how many zombies were after me, or that some had traveled around the entire mountain, leaving Critic with no option but to be engulfed by the horde. Steroid-addled 6'7" Marine with an automatic weapon and a high shooting skill in exchange for a literal Neanderthal. Not the best exchange I've ever done, so I realized to survive I would need to put my group first before rescuing others. From now on, we would only be rescuing potential recruits who were easy to save. We could also lure zombies towards traders in order to kill them and steal their goods.
I love stealing. I love taking things.
My threshold for abandoning any and all morals was already low, so thanks to Nostalgia Critic's sacrifice, I felt completely vindicated in dropping my morals and standing by as crowds of innocent people were ripped to shreds outside. So with any ounce of empathy in my group now extinguished, we could sociopathically carry out our goals with a disconnected level of efficiency.
There is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself.
Once again, my mind was back on preparation for winter. We'd need wooden logs to burn and stay warm, so I marked out some more land at the top of the base to seal off from the zombies. Stupidly though, I mindlessly drew a couple to me and had them follow me back into the base.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Problem solved. I harvested some rice and started building the new courtyard wall alongside scavenging resources from the dead traders like meals and beer. And oh, we forgot to feed our prisoners. Jesus Christ. But on the upside, Maynard's stay was up. So after bringing her to her extraction shuttle and sending her on her way, we were given our rewards. A few vape cartridges and a badass chicken statue that we could use to raise the beauty of our barracks and stop our squad members from yapping about how soul-crushingly depressing the base was. At this point, I had sent Theodore Roosevelt out on a top-secret mission to grab some resources from the only non-hostile settlement nearby, Binwick. I was mainly after components to use to build an air conditioning system, but was also holding out hope for some nice warm clothes or fabric to craft some with. While Roosevelt was away, a new fella called Lucas found our base, joined our group and helped complete some jobs, the most embarrassing of which was building some walls in the barracks, as I didn't realize that using cave walls meant a building was unroofed, and so our items were slowly deteriorating away due to outdoor exposure. Now it's almost day 50 and we've only just managed to properly install our first room. Basically, it's over. Finally, we drew the main bulk of the zombies away into our courtyard and sealed them so that we could work on the new upper courtyard in peace. A huge win to mark our 50th day. Now we could scavenge the area for food and resources in relative safety, focus on slowly improving our strength and defense, ready for day 100. Even better still, Roosevelt had reached the rundown dystopia of Binwick, where I traded for 15 components and, to my surprise, some warm clothing. It wasn't much though, so we'd still need to mine for some more components for turrets and grab some fabric to craft warmer clothes. A truly unfortunate start to the next 25 days, as Ant Smasher had really brought down the mood by violently lashing out and attempting to murder Lucas. Very naughty. So Ant Smasher is dragged off to a cell as our new prisoner.
What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Oh, that's a nice headlock, sir.
We will attempt to recruit Ant Smasher again though, through a rigorous, willpower destroying re-education process. On the bright side, Theodore Roosevelt had just arrived back from his travels and made sure that beating the ever-loving shit out of Ant Smasher for his actions was at the top of his agenda. The second on his to-do list was to install our aircon, and so we finally had our freezer. Once again, after this, luck flipped back to our side. We found a new potential friend, Anita, injured and stranded in the middle of a field, and so we arrested her to ensure she wouldn't wander out the base and run into any zombies. We also found a ton of fabric, food, and building materials dropped by a very desperate trade caravan we conveniently forgot to help. We gathered up some food to stock up for winter and got the aircon going for our freezer. I did build a wind turbine for power, but am I going to tell you about that? No. Because I realized it was more convenient and reliable to instead fuel the base with a good old-fashioned generator fueled by wooden logs. A large supply of food, power, fabric to turn into warm clothes, and resources for defenses. Things were looking pretty good. Two new fellas, Woody and Nitro, joined our group after their home burned down and helped us out with some tasks before moving on to find a new permanent home. I sent Nitro to our homebrew sweatshop, tailoring bench, where he voluntarily worked day and night to manufacture some cheap coats for the group. We were now officially comfy cozy, and because of this, our winter experience had just been upgraded from Napoleon in Russia to winter Starbucks girl aesthetic. Outsourcing my cheap labor to Nitro had also allowed me some time to get the Great Wall of the new courtyard built. With traders now regularly passing by our base, we bought some guns from traders and pillaged the rest once the zombies deleted them from existence. Most importantly, we happened to buy an incendiary launcher used to create large fires from a distance. But I wonder what we could possibly use this for. Admittedly, up until now, I hadn't put too much thought into how I would actually kill a huge horde on day 100, but now I had the answer. My goal had now become to build the most flammable, labyrinthian base possible. So with day 75 right around the corner, and a clear driving purpose in mind, I got to work. Next to join our group was Dan, who came stumbling into our base to take up refuge from the crazed beavers chasing after him. So with the need for a large flammable structure, as well as some more rooms for our now rapidly growing group, we built some cozier individual rooms for our gang. We even had enough space to look after 2 paralyzed Labradors, owned by the leader of the Tranker Alliance. A very important job, so hopefully we would be rewarded well. Some tribal fella named Squirt even joined our group for a bit. Where did he come from? Who knows? Did he help with any work? Absolutely not. But our base was definitely beginning to feel like a small community. To cap it off, Lucas even accepted Roosevelt's marriage proposal, and the group now had a wedding to look forward to in a few days. But mainly, Ant Smasher was back. We'd managed to once again brainwash him into accepting our ways, so now had yet another worker. The only thing that could possibly go wrong now is if 2 random fucking space-age robots dropped in from the sky, tore 2 perfect holes in the walls of our base, and flooded us with a wave of zombies. But the chances of that happening are so astronomically low that... Oh god. We rushed to defeat the robots before the zombies arrived, but we were too late. And with Roosevelt downed by one of the robots, he became an unintentional sacrifice while I retreated the rest of the group inside the main base. Final 25 days marked an effort to set up our final defences. A long and desperate attempt to use our remaining time to chop trees and build a deranged non-Euclidean maze. Once we had led the zombies back out of the base, killed the robots, and sealed up the breaches, we managed to slowly fill the upper courtyard with rows and rows of wooden hallways. Luckily, we had what I can only assume was a very committed vapor living underneath the ground in our courtyard. We could use this as an energy source, so we researched and set up a machine to harvest geothermal vape energy. Now we could efficiently power more or less as many turrets as we wanted. 4 new recruits also joined our group temporarily, so with a large unpaid labour force to overwork through day and night, our defences took shape. We had a final bunker to retreat to, turrets set up, and a confusing maze built for the horde to stumble through. Our plan was to bait enough zombies into our base so that the wooden hallways were filled out, and then use the small smoke leaf field we had set up, along with our incendiary launcher, to create a rapidly spreading fire to travel through the maze and wipe out as much of the horde as we could. After what felt like a very quick and monotonous final 25 days, the final day had rolled around, and our 4 temporary recruits decided that they were going to conveniently leave our group now. But that's not going to happen, so I indulge in a light bit of dev console commands to forcibly recruit them. I switched over to the Zombieland mod, which contained much more aggressive, diverse, and powerful zombies. The doors and walls we had been relying on for protection would no longer be enough to keep them out, and if there were enough of them clumping together, they would also start building rage, which would make them faster and deal more damage. Night rolled around, and the horde was on their way. Our biggest problem was that the maze in the lower courtyard hadn't been completed, leaving us more or less fully exposed once the swarm passed through the first maze. No wood or time left, and the horde knocking down my first door, my only option was to draw them through the maze with Anita ready for Ant Smasher to light the base on fire and burn them away. With a couple of doors between us and the maze, we used what time we could to make the final essential changes to our defences. To make things even tougher, I upped the number of zombies to 4,000. And now, with some brutal lag, plus how cramped the tunnels were getting, a handful of zombies were pushed over the wall, trapped Anita in both ways. Thankfully, the game was alerting me to the fact that this was indeed a dangerous situation.
Oh my.
The turrets and firing line I had set up were effective, but not as much as I had hoped. I was completely caught off guard with how fast these zombies were approaching us. It was now or never, so I sacrificed Ant Smasher to carry out his goal of starting the fire while the others escaped. This would not be enough to help us though, as there was still a ton of zombies not in my thinly disguised tinderbox of a base, and now we were being chased by about half the horde. Our only option was to circle back round and lead them back into the flames. With the horde enraged, they became much faster, and it became a game of sacrificing who I could to hold off the horde while the rest escaped. First Daniel and Lou, then Cherry and Blackwell. I still needed to make sure that at least one Marine survived, so Gooplicker needed to survive for me to complete the challenge. So I made him cower in a corner as I used Lover as bait for the rest of the horde. I led them back round to the southern entrance. Thankfully, I was able to spread the flames to the rest of the horde, strafe around in order to prolong the burning and find an opportunity for escape. The fire was too intense, and a couple of zombies took her down. Now, with only Gooplicker left, I took him around to the other side of the base, away from the zombies, and brought him back into the base, locked the door, and began working on an escape route. But now, as the sole target of the horde, it wasn't long before I was once again found, as both the undead and the flames were getting closer to me. I built a small defensive wall while I mined my escape tunnel, but unintentionally created an oven, causing Gooplicker to pass out from the heat.
Oh my.
At this point, I thought it was over, but forgot about my one saving grace, the Man in Black, aka the Jesus of Rimworld. If I could get to Gooplicker in time, I might just be able to dodge past the burning zombies and escape. So, running into the base, mercifully, most of the walls had burned away, leaving only one for me to dismantle and get to Goop. I picked him up and made my way out, leaving him safely in a field away from the flames. I had somehow managed to survive the full 100 days. And all that was left to do now was to pick off the stragglers who hadn't been napalmed into the Half-Life 2 Shard Corpse model, a job made infinitely easier by the random fucking LMG I found laying conveniently on the floor beside us. With the game now looking like a top-down Fallout 3, I cleared out the remaining zombies, and finally, we were safe. So with the zombies no longer threatening us, Gooplicker could now heal, as I built a small cabin and some new fields for food. Gooplicker and our new friend Ninjak could forget about the excitement of surviving a zombie apocalypse and could now enjoy the back-breaking labour of an Amish farming lifestyle. But most importantly, on the upside, the chicken statue had somehow, miraculously, managed to survive the flames. So I picked it up and reinstalled it back in our base.
Do you know who ate all the donuts?